I think that is a very important question that one needs to ask, and I think the judge specifically reiterated why it is so important. And the reason why it is so important is because South Africa has this revenue service, Sars, and we have about a 50 billion rand shortfall currently. And the president is trying to understand what is obviously attributed to this and why the revenue service has come under such disrepute. And the reason for this is because under the administration of then Commissioner Tom Moyane, highly skilled people left the revenue service. Some of them were pushed out. We've heard from the first and second phase of the commission. People were pushed out. People were, they literally worked in fear. They were basically told that they can't do certain things, their jobs have changed, their manager lines have changed and so forth. And the judge basically just trying to explain that in order for this commission to be working, in order for this commission to fulfill its purpose, SARS needs to operate functionally, and it needs to be able to collect all its revenue from all taxpayers, from all South Africans. And if this doesn't happen, then South Africans could possibly be paying more tax. And he's just reiterating all of this, trying to explain the importance and the urgency of this commission.
So Heidi, management consulting firm Bain and Company, they were back in the hot seat today, and there was a lot of talk about that, 164 million rand in consulting fees. What happens to that money now?
So maybe if I can just put it into context for you. Today it was supposed to be Bain and Company as well as National Treasury. Bain was supposed to be the first one in the hot seat with Mr. Moyane coming onto the stand. He did not pitch, and that obviously aggravated the commission because now they're sitting with affidavits that cannot be explained. They're dealing with documents. They were saying it's about 23 lever files that with all this information that they cannot explain because Mr. Moyane is apparently unfit and unwell and undergoing treatment. But just to go back to your question about the 164 million rand, that money was paid to Bain and Company, the consultancy firm, to restructure SARS and to present a restructuring model which was asked by Tom Moyane to do so. And Bain basically explaining that they've put aside this money and they will pay this money back to SARS or back wherever it needs to be paid to once the commission comes up with its conditions and is basically finalized. And the judge quite irritated by this because he's basically saying that they're making up their own decisions and they're making up their own conditions, and the commission basically having to find this out from the media and other forms of statements without them actually coming to the commission and saying we will actually pay back that money because the restructuring model that we presented to SARS was basically flawed.